Welcome food fans, picky eaters, the flavor curious, and everyone in between. Nothing makes good food better than good conversation. And your table is ready. Come right this way to the Food for Thoughtcast with your host, Melissa Reagan. But you can call her Chef. All right, let's get this episode started.
As a chef and a person who loves all kinds of food, I'm always looking for ways that I can emphasize quality over quantity without feeling like I'm missing out or depriving myself of the things that I love. And I love pasta. Carbonara, mac and cheese, primavera, cacio e pepe, you name it and I'm all about it. That's why I choose Bonza. Bonza is the pasta made from chickpeas, which means it has more protein, more fiber, and I believe more flavor than regular old pasta. Seriously, if you go in my pantry right now, there are 2 boxes in there awaiting their next culinary adventure. Bonza has over 12 different kinds of pasta, including penne, rotini, elbows, and cavatappi, which is my favorite, because all of those curves and ridges hold even more delicious sauce. Bonza also makes pizza crust, which tastes too good to believe that it comes from peas. You can find Bonza at Whole Foods, Target, and Walmart. Hi, and welcome back to the Food for Thoughtcast with me, your host, Melissa Reagan. As always, you can call me Chef. Today, we're talking to Keith Cedotal, the owner and chef of Quiche, Keith's epic East Side house. It's the Texan Bake-aurant with a French twist right here in East Dallas. I think you'll really enjoy this Food for Thought. Hi, Keith. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Melissa?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the Food for Thoughtcast.
Thank you for having me.
I have to ask you, as I ask every guest, what is the most amazing thing you ate this week?
Most amazing thing I ate this week? I would say a tamale by one of my friends, Olivia. And she makes the most amazing tamales. And I had one of those this week. So,
oh, I'm going to have to get on that. What kind of tamale was it?
It was a chicken verde. So it was, nothing, crazy, but she, grinds her own masa and it's just super flavorful. So
that sounds awesome. I mean, everything doesn't have to be fancy and complicated to be delicious, right?
I agree. 100%.
A lot of times the most simple things are the most delicious. Tell us where you're from, Keith.
I am originally from San Antonio, but I've been in Dallas just as long, or longer actually now. But yeah, I'm from San Antonio, grew up, born and raised a Texan. So yeah, I just have a lot of love for the state. So it was a good place to grow up.
That's awesome. Do you have any culinary heroes?
Culinary heroes, I have a couple of them. Like when I got to Dallas, I got to meet some like pretty established chefs when I started out, like Mark Castle and Stephen Piles, and they kind of like really mentored me into to what my career is today. They gave me my first, big jobs. But I as a whole, I love like Alice Waters, I love like Nancy Silverton, those kind of chefs really like kind of just have always influenced me. Chez Panisse, it's just I've been there once. I was lucky enough to go, and it was amazing. So
I'm jealous.
Yeah, it was, and I got to meet her too through Stephen Piles. We did a food and wine event in New York City, and she was there. And I don't really, I've met a lot of chefs in my life, and I do get starstruck, but I was really starstruck when I got to meet her. So.
I think it's really interesting how we all do get a little starstruck depending on who the chef is. And it seems kind of silly at times, but they really become more than mentors, right? I mean, they are celebrities in our own circle. I
got to meet Thomas Keller when I worked at the Jewel. He came in to a couple of events, and that was another chef that I was like, I couldn't even.
Yeah, I mean, he's incredible.
Yeah, I couldn't even talk. I was just like,
yeah. Exactly. Exactly. I got to meet Stephen Piles when I was 18 at the Texas Hill Country Wine and Food Festival when I was in culinary school in Austin. And I have a Polaroid somewhere. I don't even remember what those are anymore, right? But I have a printed Polaroid of myself in my culinary school uniform with Stephen Piles. And it was amazing. And I also couldn't speak. I think I picked herbs for him for several hours for the festival.
I worked for him for about 5 years. So yeah, I taught me a lot. And he's also just a good friend and just like kind of just like one of those chefs that, you know, like that's one of the first things you think of as a chef. You think of Stephen Piles when you think of like Dallas cuisine, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. He's like super prominent in the Dallas area.
Yeah,
for sure. Tell me a little bit about your culinary background. How long have you been in the business?
Long time. I started off, I guess, in 2002, around that area, time, early alts. And I came to culinary school here in Dallas at the Art Institute. I was going to a regular college and I decided I wanted to be a chef. I always kind of, you know, was always kind of fascinated with the food. And growing up, I had some grandparents that were you know, from Mexico, and my other grandmother, she was from French. And I just didn't really realize that culinary influence I already had growing up, all these unique food items that I was a part of just naturally.
Right.
As far as like, you know, wanting to be a chef, I did love to cook. And, you know, my mom said, pick a school in Texas. I wanted to go to the CIA. But she said she wouldn't let me go that far. So she said,
I think we all did at some point. There was an allure, right? There was definitely
an allure and just like, yeah. And I said, you know, I don't regret how my career has paved out, but I always did want to go up there. And then when they built one in San Antonio, I moved back to open a restaurant with Stephen Piles. But yeah, so I was always kind of fascinated with that culinary school. But I came here to Dallas and went to the Art Institute. I just got a regular culinary degree, and as probably I would be voted probably less likely to succeed.
I doubt that.
And I missed pastry class more than I think I skipped it more than anybody. And the chef, Henry Mallor, he was the pastry chef at the Anatole for years and years and years. But he told me I could make up if I was like his student aide, you know, just like
like an
class.
intern,
like an intern in his class. So I did that just to make up for all the classes I skipped. I kind of fell in love with pastries, so I just started doing like internships, and I went into a local cake store in East Dallas. Had no idea what I was doing, and then I started decorating wedding cakes, and that's how I kind of got into the pastry field.
That's amazing. I mean, that's how it happens, right? You go in somewhere with your hopes and your dreams, and maybe you don't know what you're doing yet, but somebody's willing to take a chance on you. And I feel like we all have a little element of that in our own career stories, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, when I started cooking and, you know, getting jobs, internships, and trying and seeing what being in the kitchen was really like, I always like looked at the pastry kitchen, and everybody was like it was very clean and very precise, and everybody just seemed very calm. And then I was like cleaning out, 60-gallon, steam kettles full of lobster claws, and I was like, oh, I want to go to the pastry side.
So I had a similar experience in culinary school. I actually skipped the day where we made pistolets and baguettes and demi baguettes. I still can't make one to save my life. And the precision is what kills me, because I don't have the patience for the tedium of weighing out recipes. But further on in my career, like, I'm learning how to appreciate that science. But man, when I was 19, I couldn't be bothered. I went swimming that day. And I remember, because it came up on our pastry final exam, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. This looks like a breadstick, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So I was like, I'll just take the C. It's fine.
It's interesting how it all kind of pans out.
Right. Tell the listeners about Quiche. I'm super excited to share this with everybody.
I love talking about Quiche. Well, I came up with Quiche because it was after COVID. I had just left a job after being in this industry for so long, working for basically every chef in town. I was like, well, I can do this. I can start my own restaurant. I call it a Bake-aurant because it's, between a bakery and a restaurant. So yeah, I wanted to think of something that wasn't like just, I don't want it to be just bakery driven or restaurant driven. I kind of wanted to do both, since that's, what my career has been. I came up with Quiche, and it was an acronym for Keith's Epic East Side House, because I was doing all my baking at my house, and that's how I started.
Right.
I totally destroyed my kitchen. It's just a wreck. I hate it. But quiche to me, like the perfect food item that kind of represented pastry and savory. You have like a pastry crust, and then you have a savory filling. Obviously, I've taken it to different, sweet and savory, but it was like the perfect example of what quiche is, a blending of savory and pastry.
I've never thought about it before, but I think that's a perfect explanation. I really don't feel like there's anything more savory than eggs.
Yeah.
Like as a meal, right? Starting off at its core.
And it's used in pastries. Like eggs are like the main staple of pastry. But, it was just like, and there were some weird, I had gone through some weird namings, like, pronunciations, and yeah. And then my husband just told me, I had gone through names and logos. And for me, that was like the most important part, the brand. So I spent a lot of time on it, probably too much time, but I think I got there, and I'm very happy with what it represents.
Well, it definitely paid off. Nothing I love better than a nice play on words, and if you can incorporate your own name in there, I think it's even better.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, it's not just going to be any else, which is the core of quiche right now.
Right.
We do live in East Dallas. I do want it to be bigger, what it is right now, but I think, as time grows and quiche grows, there'll be more growth in locations.
Yeah, absolutely. So for my listeners who are local, like, tell us what's the good word? How do we get a hold of all the goodies? What do you offer?
So Quiche is a delivery service as of right now. So I only do deliveries on Saturdays and Sundays. I do have a website. It's quichebakery.com. That will give you a rundown of me, the products, when I deliver, etc. And basically, I haven't done any pop-ups. I'm working on that right now. For me, though, the delivery was just like a brand builder. So it wasn't in my business plan to be like a delivery service. So now, after doing it for a year, I think people would kind of be upset if I took that out. So it is part of the business plan now, that, once I decide on the location, which main nemesis right now is just
Sure.
try, but once I find that location, I will be delivering, in-house within a certain mile radius.
So what you're saying is you've gotten people hooked on it and now it's too late.
Yeah, it's too late to turn back. But it is fun. I do like, I've met a lot of awesome customers, people that have ordered my products, a lot of regulars. So it's been nice to see that feedback and all the support that I've gotten from everybody. And of course, I would like to branch out and be bigger and do more zip codes and deliver. But right now, I'm still a one-man show. I do have somebody that helps me with my social media, and her name's Fran. She's great.
Shout out to Fran.
Shout out to Fran Mayo. She's awesome. She lives she worked here with me in Dallas, and then she moved to the Northeast. So she's in Massachusetts. But that was a whole nother topic, is social media. But yeah, so you can order on my website.
Well, I'm going to link everything about Keith and Quiche at the foodforthoughtcast.com website, so that all the local listeners can get a hold of your delicious goodies. Do you feel like it was an unexpected benefit of being in the situation that you are now, right? Like, you're a one-man delivery service, basically. Do you feel like you're getting to interact with guests and customers in a way that you wouldn't have if you were cooking in a kitchen somewhere? I mean, do you feel like that's...
I do, because I get to deliver and see people, meet people, talk to people about, their orders or whatnot. I do miss being in a kitchen around people, because, when you're in this industry, you spend more time with your coworkers than you do your loved ones.
It's your chosen family, for better or worse.
Yeah. So you spend you spend 12 to 14 hours a day with these
Indeed.
people, with these, with your coworkers. So I do miss that camaraderie. I do miss being around people. So the kitchen I'm at now, being around people, sometimes I find myself just talking and talking because I don't get to be around that many people, when I'm by myself,
There's definitely something about that frenetic energy. Like, it's exhausting, but being able to keep up with people, and
It is.
yeah, and you start to, even if it's the one fry guy that you don't particularly like, right? I think every kitchen has its cast of characters, and you grow to love it.
It's hard when it's like midnight and I'm like, washing dishes, but I always tell myself this is just the beginning.
Do you ever loop in restaurant noise or just play music in the background so that you feel
a little bit
for the old days?
A little bit of both. I am one of those pastry chefs. I can work in either silence or having the music blast. It doesn't bother me either way.
Right.
But I know some people like noise and some people don't. But yeah, I can go either way with that. It's weird. I know it's like kitchen noise, doesn't bother me.
Yeah, you grow accustomed to it, and then the silence after growing accustomed to all the noises and the sights and the sounds and the smells, like the silence after that has to be a little bit deafening, I think.
It is. I mean, especially like I said, when it's like late at night and listen to podcast but then again, you listen to true crime podcasts at midnight and you're just like
looking over your shoulder.
Exactly.
Suddenly you find yourself hiding the knives after you've washed them so that nobody breaks in and murders you.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got on the true crime podcast to train myself, and I just found that I was just increasingly nervous during the day. I was looking at every window and like every doorknob and like, is it safe? I don't know.
Especially when you're by yourself and
yeah.
An empty kitchen and you're just cooking. But it does give me something to listen to.
Right on. Well, I love the origin story and that you're working for yourself. I think that's everybody's dream at some time, right?
I think that's
we've all been there.
Yeah, I think it's initially what most chefs aspire to. Maybe not, but that's what I always aspire to. I always think I should have done it 10 years ago, but I learned a lot and in my career wouldn't have changed it for anyway. I'm glad that I got this opportunity to show people in Dallas what quiche is about. So
right. Well, maybe those 10 years were really necessary to build you into the person that you are now. And I love hearing a success story where people are where they fit, where they're.
Yeah. I mean, I've always just kind of, I've done really well in my career in Dallas. I'm very lucky that I've got to work with great chefs, great restaurants. I've gotten some awards here and there. And I just really I love what I do. And I've always kind of just put that into my work. So
yeah, I mean, in this business, we're definitely a people of passion, and you have to be able to taste that in the finished product, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's been some ups and downs along the way, and
sure,
getting screamed at and yelled at.
It's character building, Keith.
Yeah, and all that good stuff. For the most part, it's been really extraordinary.
Do you feel like having grandparents from two different cultural backgrounds influences your flavor profiling at all? Or how did that really affect the way you learned how to cook? Did you learn to cook in the home first or?
Yeah, I think my grandparents on my mom's side, they're from Mexico. Their first language was Spanish. But I grew up eating all these great Mexican / Tex-Mex kind of dishes that my grandfather would, just homemade tortillas, homemade salsas, stuff that as a kid, you don't really, you just think it's normal, but which it is, but at the same time, you don't really appreciate it as much. So, and then on my father's side, my grandmother was from France, but she lived, in a multitude of different places during going to boarding schools and stuff like that in France. And she cooked a lot of stews and made a lot of breads. She always just cooked with this just kind of homey kind of country, French country feel.
The French countryside, kind of
yeah. And I just never
Provençal type style.
Correct. On our honeymoon, we went to Paris and I got to meet some of my extended family in Lyon.
Oh, I love that.
And it was great. And I let her order. And Lyon has some, the best, I think, French cuisine, in the country. But yeah, it was nice. It did influence me, and that's why I think quiche is Texas kind of inspired, food with a little bit of the French twist. So that's why you'll see like some French items with chorizo or some salsa, or just some of the added Texas kind of, like I have the croque monsieur with the barbecue sauce. So I know it's not really anything like we said about simple. It's just kind of taking some stuff I grew up with and putting it into a different cuisine.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. If it's what you grew up with, then it's what you're going to excel at. And I love that. I love seeing people's personal touches, and I love the ways that food can tell our stories without words, right?
Yeah.
And as far as France is concerned, all the postcard food is what you're going to get when you go to Paris. You're going to get the baguette, and you're going to get the chocolatine and the things like that. But you're going out into the countryside, you're going to get the real deal stuff. Like,
we ate some sweetbreads and some really
I love sweetbreads.
Interesting, like some liver, and what else was there? It was just it was like a lamb shank. It was very, it's unique. I enjoyed it. My husband did not. He ate a lot of bread and drank a lot of wine.
That's also a perk of going to France. Well, and for the listeners, really quickly, so sweetbread is another name for the thymus or pancreas of an animal. It's typically veal, and if you've never tried it, you're really missing out. A little Marsala wine, it becomes this buttery, amazing, delicious thing. It doesn't taste like organ meat, in my opinion. It has a really nice sweetness and has a really great texture.
Yes, yeah, so. And there's, I guess, a couple of different ways you can eat it. I think the one I had deep fried in like a batter of some sort, and it was light and fluffy and airy, and it was just it's delicious. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, battered and deep fried, it almost sounds like Texan already, right?
Yeah, it had a little state fair taste to it.
I can't imagine it's like maybe 10 years from now it'll be like sweetbreads on a stick, deep fried.
I mean, you would think, right?
It's not that far off, I think.
I think people would order it not knowing, and they'd be like, sweetbread, huh? And then surprise.
Well, with everything that's happening with sustainability and the supply chain and everything else, I mean, I think organ meat it's going to be bound to have its heyday. Like, it's going to have its return, because everything else is going to become too hard to source. So
yeah, I mean, that's why I have 7 chickens, so I can have eggs. Okay,
so have they continued laying? Because I have a lot of friends with chickens that right when the avian flu stuff hit, they stopped laying eggs all of a sudden. It was like they knew. Are yours laying?
They're laying. 5 years ago, I was a novice chicken owner, and I think just by continuing and getting new chickens, I've become an expert per se. But they are laying. They haven't had any. I've lost 2 at the very beginning, and I know what to look for. I know what they need to survive and be healthy, and
right.
And they do take a lot of work. I think some people just have backyard chickens because they look cute and stuff. They are monsters. They will tear up your yard. There's poop everywhere. They some of them aren't nice, and they will peck you and run away from you. But I do have some that will come and sit on my lap and chill.
That's adorable.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep laboring under the delusion that they're all adorable and like to be cuddled. Because
this is a whole nother podcast, but yeah, you would, I could go on and on about the weird chicken diseases I've seen, the pecking order. We planted when we first got them. We let them free range in the yard. Now they have their own section free range, so they don't get to tear up the garden.
Right.
But yeah, they would just annihilate mulched, gardens or areas, just anything that you had nicely planted, whatever they would just tear it up. I see them just like rip apart lizards and snakes, and it's they're little dinosaurs. Yeah, I like to call them little dinosaurs, but I do love I do love my chickens. They're great.
I love that so much. I mean, I think at least this generation has gotten really far away from knowing where their food comes from. So, urban farming, I mean, that's a whole other level.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I could eat them.
Sure.
That's a whole nother,
Did you name them? Is that why?
I named them. Yeah. So they're all named. They're all, have their own personality, different personalities, and they're all different. Most of them are different breeds, but I got them in pairs. So I have 7 chickens. I had 3 to begin with, and then I lost 2, 6 more, and then my husband said, "No more chickens."
That's enough.
Yeah, he would be happy with.
I think that's amazing, and to know that it's local eggs. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, I do use them in my food. This is like the time of year where they start really producing, because the days are getting longer. And I garden. I have a garden. I love to grow veggies and all that stuff. Once Quiche is a brick and mortar, I will probably look for like a piece of land that I could start growing veggies and having eggs.
I love that. So when you go to put farm to table on the menu, perhaps it'll actually be farm to table.
Yeah.
Farm
to, I say that now, but that would be the goal. If I could just live on a farm, but my, again, my husband, he does not want to live on a farm. He's a city person. So.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs, and I admittedly probably wouldn't know the first thing to do with a chicken except for hug it.
Yeah.
It's important. Chickens need hugs too, but
yes.
I'm a dog person. So, and unfortunately they don't lay any eggs or provide anything edible. Yeah. So it's just hugs and kisses. So do you consider yourself a full-on pastry chef, or do you just say I'm a chef and I do pastries? I know that seems like a silly question, but sometimes people delineate between the two.
Correct. I think I'm a pastry chef, but I also think I am a chef as well. In your career, you do kind of venture out and try to do new things. For me, I did.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of my chef friends that I'm close to, like, I don't think any of these executive chefs would like make a career change and become a pastry chef, because they're really good at what they do. But I think there's pastry chefs because we like to make sweet stuff and caramels, and we just kind of fell in love with this type of cuisine. But I always wanted to learn how to do everything in the kitchen. So I would pick a job that was kind of not in my wheelhouse, and
you have to keep learning.
Yeah, so I learned about Thai food, and I helped my friends open a restaurant that was Thai and Vietnamese. So I got to learn how to do that. But also, it's just like running a kitchen, running a full kitchen.
Right, absolutely.
I've done other types of, besides pastries, I've done other types of cuisine.
Do you draw influence from any of those other types of cuisine?
I love Thai food. I love Southeast Asian food. I always want to go over there, but haven't yet. But I do like those flavors, like the tamarind, the sour, the sweet.
There's a lot of things to play with there.
Mm-hmm. I do like that type of cuisine. Now with quiche, once it gets going, and maybe I'll have some cool noodle salad or something down that road.
So besides the quiche with a Q, but the egg kind, what else do you offer on your menu?
So I do offer like 1 savory and pastry box. So it's usually 6 items, 3 savory, 3 pastries. And I try to change them up bi-weekly, which can be a little stressful on my end. But
I'm sure, yeah.
It's, but as I look at it now, I have a year's worth of recipes and product. Quiche's
it's like your repertoire that you can pull from, right?
So I have all that. So I have the box. I usually do like some half dozen of some baked goods. So I have like either like the Croque Monsieur Hot Pockets or something gluten-free. And then I try to do a large savory quiche. And then once the season's right for like fruit and whatnot, I'll do like a sweet quiche as well. And I've done peaches and cream quiche, sweet quiche. I usually have some type of soup with house-made bread and butter. So I usually have that rotating in the mix. And then I call it like the quiche kind of kitchen items that I'll just have, like granola, pimento dip, which is very popular. I have pate, and I usually change the jam up. Not to, toot my own horn here, but
Please.
I am an expert canner. So once the season starts, I'll go pick blackberries or peaches and strawberries, and then I will can my own jams. So And I usually I'll have the regular mainstream ones, regular flavored, and then I'll do some funky jalapeno, habanero type jam. So
Yeah, myself, I'm a huge fan of sweet and savory together, like almost in every single meal.
yeah,
It's almost to a deficit level where I've just been throwing crazy things together all my life. It's just something about the two flavors together. But I love jalapenos and savory flavor notes in jams and jellies. I love that stuff. I feel like
yeah,
a biscuit makes a great carrier for all sort of salty and sweet,
yeah.
spicy things.
I grow habaneros in my garden, so once peaches come in, I do have a peach habanero jam that people like, and it is spicy, but it's not going to kill you, but it does pack a punch. But yeah, I love canning. I got into it maybe about 6 years ago, and
Yeah.
pressure canning or just water bath canning.
Mhm.
I do like canning. So
I think it's a really important skill for every chef and every home cook as well to kind of have in their back pocket. Because just preserving things is really, really important.
it is, and it is once you start, it can be kind of overwhelming because there are things you do need to watch out for, like botulism, all that stuff. But once you get over that kind of initial fear, I think making your own tomato sauce and canning that, which you can do in a water bath, is amazing. And I think if people, just would try it, I think they would like it and fall in love with it. And you don't have to like can like a whole pantry. You can just,
Yeah, absolutely. There's tons of recipes out there that are good for small batches. So
yeah.
there were maybe 2 or 3 summers in a row where I was just pumping out incredible amounts of pickles and candied jalapenos and preserves. And after a while, it's a lot of time to put into it. But there's also, you can can 3 jars of jam at the same time with very minimal effort and like very little. It goes for like 15 minutes. It's not.
Yeah,
It's
you
not
don't need.
crazy. You don't need a whole day.
I mean, don't even get me started on pickles. It's my favorite food group.
Do you do like traditional or do you do any fermentations?
I do it all once the season kind of gets going, which
Sure.
this is probably fall, and this time of year is like my favorite season, spring and fall. I don't know why. So I'll start pickling. I do fermented pickles. I don't sell those just because of the cottage law, but I do ferment for myself. I do my own kombucha, which I've had my SCOBY for about 7 years now.
That's impressive. I've never been able to keep one of those alive long enough.
Let me know. I have. It's like this food. It's huge.
It's something about the humidity in my house. I always end up with penicillin somehow. It just vegetables do really well here, but sourdough doesn't. I always end up with mold and but I digress. But I love like a good ferment, like the SCOBYs. That stuff's amazing. I always tell like a home cooks like the easiest place to start is throw some carrots in salt water.
Mm-hmm.
You give it 4 days outside, put some dill or jalapenos in there, and it's really
I have
easy.
some in the fridge. I should give you. Once I get a little can. Once I start canning this season, some pickles and jams. And
I would love that. And I have cauliflower in the fridge that's lacto fermented, and I keep it kind of in a buffalo style sauce. There's enough sodium in there that kind of just keeps it good all year long. I have a half gallon of that in the fridge all the time.
I have right now. I have pickles. I have sauerkraut, kimchi, maybe once every 3 months. I eat it. I like it, but I usually give it to my chef friends. They like my kimchi. I don't know. I hope it's good. I think it's good. They like it. But it's, again, just another fermentation type of food that I like. So there's just so much out there. And as I think about it and just look at my kitchen, I can just see like all the fermenting stuff I have. And it's pretty cool.
I love that so much. I mean, I think it's as chefs, I think it fits our personalities on some level to always have about 15 things going at once because that's part of that frenetic energy of the kitchen. Like you have to be able to A, multitask and B, kind of have all the pots and pans going at the same time, right? It's just part of time management for us. And so I love to hear what other chefs have going in their home kitchen.
Yeah. I mean, sourdough, obviously, and then a lot of friends, not chef friends, will ask me for sourdough, and I'll tell them what to do, and then I'll check back with them maybe about a month out, and they'll just be like, "Oh yeah, it died," or I threw it away. So I don't think people realize that sourdough, you have to feed it every day. You have to. Right. I mean, you could get by with maybe missing a day or two, but it will start to really get sour. smell putrid, but but you know, a lot of people don't realize that it's a task, and you have to keep it up. So.
Yeah, it's both a pet and a job.
Yeah.
The running joke around here is that when houseplants and starters come through the front door, they start writing their last will and testament because I can't do it.
I have a green thumb, so I have a lot of plants. I have a lot of plants, a lot of but yeah, I've always kind of been that way, and I think that's what quiche will be when it gets open. I will have like jars of jams and pickles and fermented foods in a section that people can, you know, grab and go and all that stuff. So
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. And I think it's really important for people in this business to have some sort of intimate relationship with where food comes from, and doing the most basic stuff like curing and canning and preserving and things like that. It's too easy to go like, well, I have a vendor, or I can just go to Walmart. Right. Yeah. But having that kind of inside knowledge about what it takes and how it happens is super important.
Yeah. I mean, we do it because we know how to make like creme fraiche and all that.
Sure.
You know, so, but I hope people appreciate it that, like, you know, I do make my own creme fraiche, like when sour cream, you know, when I put stuff in in my products and whatnot. Yeah. I mean, it's just something I enjoy doing. I know it's a science. I don't really think of it as a science. I just kind of look at it as like this interesting process of making food. So,
well, I can't imagine like in the pioneer days, right, where they knew how to make bread rise, but they didn't have the science, or maybe they didn't know the science, but how they just had to learn on the fly, right? Mm-hmm. What was going to make the bread good or not, and how this jar of green beans was not safe to eat and this one is, and then they passed that on through word of mouth and stories of generation to generation. And I can't even imagine doing it without the science. Like, it seems a little daunting and a little bit dangerous, but now that we have all the science and then you continue to do it as a labor of love, I truly believe that love is going to show up in the final product.
Yeah. I mean, it's part of quiche. It's part of who I am. And this is all just stuff that I've learned throughout my career. But as you grow in this industry, I think there's certain parts that you kind of do for yourself that are food related, you know, like canning, you know, absolutely. I hadn't done it for any restaurant I worked for. You know, I make jams, of course, and stuff like that, but, or just like kimchi or the, you know, fermentation of pickles or whatnot. I just always kind of just, it's something I do for myself and, I enjoy. So I just think it's an interesting concept, you know, this industry that we're in and what we take from it. So.
Yeah, 100%. For the listeners, real quick, I just want to let everybody know that a SCOBY is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. So that could be the mother or the starter of kombucha, homemade vinegar, and then it's similar in like a bread starter, but it's not exactly the same. You're attracting wild yeast from the air, but that fermentation just looks a little bit different. There's all different types of fermentation, but that's sure to be a future episode of the Food for Thought cast. Always want to educate as well.
It does look like something from outer space. I mean,
it really does.
It looks like layers of dirty contacts on top of each other. I don't know how to explain it, but
it's affectionately, I like to call it pond scum sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have a good hand feel. It's slimy.
No.
You know, it does smell like vinegar because it is the core of, you know, vinegar.
Right.
But I grew mine I just did it from an original flavored kombucha, and I grew it that way. And it didn't take me that long. It took me a couple months to grow it, but now it's out of control. I wish I could give it away, but nobody seems to want it.
Right. So for better or worse, when you start explaining to people where their food comes from and what it looks like in the beginning, they either become very, very turned off or even more interested. It's definitely a dichotomy. It's one or the other. And as far as a SCOBY is concerned, I don't think there's anything else in the culinary world that you could describe as slimy and it would be correct or good. Like, it's supposed to be slimy.
It's supposed to be slimy. It's supposed to be, you know, that's why you don't see SCOBYs out on countertops at any restaurants or anything. It's in the back because it is kind of.
No, nobody wants to see that.
No. But once you finally grow one and you see it for the first time, it is pretty amazing. it's interesting. But yeah, just be careful. If you grow one, you're going to have that for a very long time. And again, just like a starter, you have to feed it and keep it going. So
Yeah, it's a commitment for sure.
it is. It is.
So say it's been a very long week making all the amazing items for quiche and then delivering them. When you get home, what is your go-to meal? What are you making the most at home? What's your go-to, like, we'll say comfort food?
Tacos. I'll make tacos once a week. I do like pasta, but I try not to eat too many carbs. But I do like making pasta as well, and tomato sauces and all that good stuff. So that, to me, like comfort food is like pasta and lots of cheese.
Of course, cheese.
I love and soups and stews. I know, like even in the summertime, I always crave soup. I don't know why. It's weird. So I'll eat tomatoes. I'll make big batches of like tomato soup or lentil soup. Yeah. So I love making soup. But pasta,
so I have
soup,
to know like what kind of tacos.
chicken or beef. I do a variety. So it'll be sometimes instead of lettuce, I'll do like cabbage.
Sure.
And really spicy salsa or jalapeno or something on the side.
Do you do like a pickled cabbage, like a escabeche, or do you do
sometimes? No, not really. I mean, for the most part, when I do tacos, it's like really kind of like a quick fire type thing.
Sure.
Just whatever I have in the fridge that I'll just pull out. So yeah, I mean, I'll have like pickled jalapenos and like lettuce or cabbage or tomatoes. But sometimes I'll just do mushroom tacos too, because my husband loves mushrooms, so he'll eat mushrooms with anything. So I'll usually, I'll just do mushroom tacos as well.
Yeah, when you treat them the right way, they make an excellent meat substitute.
I don't cook a lot here with like tofu or whatnot, but like mushrooms, like I always use that as a meat replacement, just because it's just so hearty. And I think people know that, but at the same time, It's just like there's so many ways you could.
I like to grind up mushrooms and add pepitas to them. When you cook it in liquid, it makes a really nice like meaty texture. And of course, when you add all the typical taco seasoning spices, I've actually fed it to meat eaters before with no pushback. They just had no idea.
That's the best part, when people don't say anything.
Yeah. So I wasn't trying to be sneaky, but I was just like experimenting. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's weird. Like with comfort food too, like I don't crave like hamburgers or anything like that. A nice big bowl of soup. And I always, like I said earlier, I think in the podcast, that I do love pickles. Dill pickles and butter pickles. I eat a pickle like every day. I just love them. I love the tartness, sour. I don't know if it's just how I grew up. My parents like pickles, but I love anything pickled. So beets. But It's primarily like cucumber pickles that I really enjoy. But I love any type of pickled veggie.
I definitely love acidity myself. And I find that a lot of recipes lack the appropriate amount of acid. Like a little dash of vinegar will change a lot of things dramatically.
I always add vinegar into my soups, no matter what type of soup it is, because it always brightens it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you need all the quadrants of flavor, right?
Yeah.
It just needs a little brightness, or a lot of things really benefit from just a squeeze of lemon at the end, or a squeeze of lime.
Yeah, I mean, I think always adding those makes a huge difference.
Amazing. And then what is your go-to if you want to feel fancy?
Like where
have anything that you make that's like special? Yeah, both. We can talk about both.
I love pates and I like caviar. I don't get to eat caviar that often. When I do eat caviar, it's probably somebody's gifted it to me. I do like seafood. I love like a really good shrimp cocktail. It's really simple, but I do love a really good, like just fresh shrimp, good cocktail sauce. I do like sushi. So like if I do want to go splurge, I'll go to like Uchi or, I used to work there too.
You really can't beat that fatty tuna at Uchi. It's so good.
There's things, yeah. I mean, when you work there too, it's just like you're sampling all this stuff and just like, oh, it's so, and that's perfect. This example of like adding acid to your food. They do that very well. Yeah. So like seafood at home, if I like just a nice steak.
Okay. So, what's your favorite steak cut? I have to know.
Personally, I like the hanger steak because I know
how my gosh, I can't believe you said that. It's my favorite steak as well.
I know how to clean it.
Yeah.
So it's probably only like kind of like I could probably really screw up like cleaning a tenderloin. Yeah, I like hanger steak. I just think it's a really good piece of meat, and I think it's just
completely underrated.
Yeah, I mean, you see it a lot in restaurants. People don't know what they're necessarily eating. They think it's just like a regular steak or like a mini kind of tenderloin or something like that. But it's,
Like a lot of people think it's like the sliced, like skinny end of the Chateaubriand, like
Yeah.
the tail.
So but early in my career, I worked at one restaurant. They went through a lot of hanger steak, and I got good at cleaning them. So, but yeah, I love a hanger steak. It's great.
It's so good. I love it.
I don't really like really fatty steaks, like ribeyes and stuff.
Right.
Leaner types of meat. So, and I guess just being like, even working with Steven, he had a really big ribeye on his menu for years and years and years. And just, I guess, when you see something just every day in and day out. Like,
was it like a tomahawk or was it like a regular?
It was just like, it wasn't a tomahawk, but it was just a really good ribeye. He had like a bean ragu on it and like a bunch of onion rings on top.
Sounds good.
It was.
It sounds good right now.
It was
actually
rich. Anyway, but I just never really liked the fattier, steaks. So.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's some meals where you need a walk afterwards, and some meals where you need a nap afterwards. Yes. So I think they all have their place. But I love asking other chefs, what's your favorite cut of steak? Like, what are you cooking after a long shift? And sometimes you get the most amazing, interesting answers. And it's good because for the people at home, it's also good to see that like we're regular folks too.
Yeah. Are you going to tell the people what a hanger steak is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually have a steak episode coming up where I wax poetic about the differences between the bavette and picanha and the hanger steak. But it's named the hanger steak because it actually hangs over the backside of the organs on the hind part of the cow, and it doesn't do anything, which is why it's so tender. It never gets contracted as a muscle. And it's one of my favorites.
I knew where the location and all that, but it's nice to get a little refresh as well.
Yeah. The first time I ever saw it was a steak and frites at a restaurant in Boston, and I had no idea what it was. And they spelled it like HANGAR, like an airplane hanger. And I had known what airline chicken was, but I'd never seen it. And I was like, I have to try this. And it just blew my mind. It was this really simple compound butter with like Belgian style frites. And it was, at that point, I think I was maybe 20. And it was the most amazing thing I'd eaten to date.
Yeah, I think a lot of people order steak and frites. Like that's probably what they're getting to is a hanger steak of some. But
yeah, absolutely. The butchers used to keep it a secret. They used to keep it for themselves behind the counter, and you really had to know who to ask and where to get it. And
it's like something that's never really gained popularity. Like it's popular in our industry. We use it a lot, but it's never, it's never had its like heyday. I don't believe like people don't talk about like hanger steak. So
I think it's a travesty. Yeah. There needs to be more love for the steak cuts that are near that upper plate, right? Like it's not just the short ribs. It's not just the tenderloin. There's so many good parts of a cow.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell everybody that I've had a couple of things from Quiche that were absolutely mind-blowing. That chorizo tart flambe, really, really good. I know that makes its rounds on the menu.
It does, and that's a good example of a quiche item. But yeah, it's basically like a French pizza. The quiche version is a little slow, a little smaller because I have to fit it into a box. But
sure.
But yeah, it's basically just a pizza dough, and then usually some type of fromage, some type of either queso fresco, or sometimes they'll do like creme fraiche and a blended cheese with cilantro or chives or onions. Instead of bacon, which is traditional, I'll mix it up with chorizo. Just to give that little Texas flair. And then, yeah, it's great. People seem to like it. But I'm glad that you've had it and that you've enjoyed it as well. So,
yeah, I got to try it at a friend's house, and then I look forward to ordering everything else. I'm going to start becoming a regular customer because, absolutely. And then the cornbread Madeleines, really, really good.
It's another
to go with the chili.
It's another kind of quiche inspired.
I love it.
I like everything. Like try something. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, I'll try to make it better. I'll give it another week, and if it doesn't, then I'll just move on to the next. But I love this part of quiche R&D because I get to try a bunch of things that I think are unique, and then when quiche opens, then I'll have all these items that people have had for a year now. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. And just in the delivery part now, you're just making us want it more and more. I wish you nothing but the best and continued success. And I would love to have you back on when the brick and mortar opens. We can celebrate, get the word out there. But for all my local listeners, I really, really encourage you to check out Keith's Epic East Side House.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I hope you have a wonderful day. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today.
You too.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That's a wrap for today. Until the next episode of the Food for Thoughtcast, make good food, eat good food, share it, and be kind to one another.
Thanks so much for listening today. You are part of what makes us special, and we are so glad you joined us. Don't forget to rate, subscribe, and leave a review. Just like food, delicious podcasts are better when you share them with others. Come back for seconds wherever podcasts are served, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Food for Thoughtcast.
You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at the Food for Thoughtcast or at www.foodforthoughtcast.com, where you can link to all podcast players, or you can send us an email at foodforthoughtcmc@gmail.com.